afternoon from Castle Goring, from Nikki, from me, and from the Wappies. I thought I would show them to you because they are growing like Topsy. I mean, look at Diesel, my goodness. He's a powerhouse. And then, of course, we have darling Aurora, who is the sweetest bubby. And, of course, Babe, who couldn't be sweeter as well. And then we have Mickey, who is almost through weaning them. So they are growing at the rate of knots. I know several of you have asked to see them, and so I thought I would show them. So I'm going to take them back inside now. God bless. Well, the Muppets are adorable, but they really are much too distracting to do anything with, except play. So, without further ado, I'm going to plunge right in with Vinnie RAF, who says, the narcissist will be patenting Princess and Duchess next. She is acting like a dictator. I wish the Royal House of Windsor would get their house in order, as the narcissist is going about trying to patent 480-year-old words like she owns sorry like she owns the English dictionary. She is the archetypal dictator. What is your opinion, Lady C? Kisses to the pooches. Vinnie RAF. It's very funny. I couldn't agree more. You know, the sad thing about Meghan is that she was given the most wonderful opportunity. She was given the role of a lifetime. But her egotism, her narrow-mindedness, her complete lack of enlightenment, her unsophisticated approach to life, her self-centered approach to life, her monetary and other greed, because she's greedy for attention, but she needs to be in control. And yes, it is, in my opinion, a study in delusionalism, because this is a woman who is so arrogant, impertinent, and impudent, as well as imprudent, that she doesn't actually realize that it is morally wrong, aside from anything else, to try to copyright words that have great meaning, throughout the English language. I mean, it's beyond belief. But this is a theme that we will continue with, because Michelle Graham says, Lady C, Meghan Markle wants to trademark the word archetype. This is becoming a trend amongst the Harkle's associates. Better not. Of course, she's alluding to Better Up. Renamed by me after reading their reviews when Hazzy's position was first announced, which have changed dramatically since I went to the reviews, has trademarked Inner Work, which was a collection of words used a lot back in the 80s when I was seeking inner strength to cope with my marriage to a narcissist. Thank you, Meghan Markle, for teaching me so much about how not to live one's life. We all have our problems and insecurities. That's no excuse to do what she's done. With your, with your brilliant command of the English language, thank you. Lady C, Mickey, come and help Motty. Her head is swelling too much. What are your thoughts on trademarking everyday words? I think about my own archetypes often of late, as life hasn't been kind these last few months. And do you know how it works in the real world? Please feel free to edit my question as you see fit if I'm fortunate enough to have my question answered. Well, it is an absolute disgrace. It is shamelessness of the highest order. It shows a contempt for the rights of others that is truly shocking. That this jumped up nonentity, this hustler, this creature who has, oh, I believe in the power of womanhood. I'm a feminist. Come on, darling, let me show you what my talents are. Yeah, I'm just such a feminist. I don't ever play on my feminine wiles. But then again, of course, if you're a true woman, you've got to play on your feminine wiles while you're a feminist. So I change my position on that one, as I change my position on everything else. It's actually beyond belief that any human being would have the brass neck to try to copyright the word archetype, which is an ancient Greek word that has been used for several centuries now to describe a particular representative of a certain type. The archetype is the ultimate type. What next? Is she going to decide that not only Duchess and Princess, she's going to copyright? Yes. No. She's going to copyright the word, the right for us to speak, but only with her permission. I mean, the fact of the matter is, there are hopefully laws in the United States of America to prevent such a flagrant abuse of other people's rights. Now, Better Up did trademark inner work, but inner work is really not quite as important a phrase as the word archetype is important, a word. So you could say that was opportunistic, exploitative, and really all the things that truly reputable business people don't do. At least truly reputable business people in the United Kingdom and Europe. They don't behave like that. I would hope there are laws in place in America for this to be shown the door with the greatest possible speed. Geety Oracle says, Dear Lady C, a friend of mine, a reputable psychologist, is freaking out about Meghan's request to trademark the term archetype, which has been in use for over 500 years, and Jung and Freud and the likes have popularized. All psychologists and social workers and coaches have been using this term for eons, in audios, in writings, in books. Now, if this woman who uses her own sues her own blood, gets this approved. The entire field of psychology is in danger! Exclamation mark. Please, Lady C, my friend wants to know what the options are. Apparently she and others have sent complaints to US Trade Commission. We would love to hear from you and your valuable advice re what the options may be. Her narcissism and demands have no end. You can say that again. She's clearly unhinged at the moment, just the moment, and couldn't care less for what she's demanding. Oh, she cares very greatly for what she's demanding, my dear. Everything. There are some people who have insatiable appetites, and she's one of them. Her narcissism, the woman is uneducated in the field of psychology and demands to trademark common psychological terminologies. We just cannot make such stuff up. And Spotify has paid this damaged woman to give advice to other women? ? And several exclamation marks. Is this really happening? ? Several exclamation marks. Here's my archetype for a woman like Meghan Markle. Femme fatale. Well, Geety Oracle, I wouldn't endow her with sufficient praise as to call her a femme fatale, because that has positive connotations. This attempt has literally sickened me. I literally felt sick when I heard about it, and it takes a lot to turn my stomach. But she is so flagrant. She is so in your face. She is so deranged, if her conduct is anything to go by, that it actually has ceased, where I'm concerned at this point, to be entertaining or instructive. It is just repellent, repulsive, and quite frankly sickening. What can you do? Write to every representative you have. This is an American problem. This is not a British problem. She may have used all her advantages, all her femininity, all her feminism. Come here, H, let me show you a good time. Yes, H, you want to have your horizons expanded, not only horizontally but vertically. You want me to inform you of the great wider world and all the possibilities that there are in this great wider world, because you're no longer trapped by such pedestrian, middle-class, ordinary, disgusting notions and all those things that you were brought up to believe in, and that really are limiting you, H, from developing your full potential as a human being. You need to get in touch with your other side, the side I'm in touch with. And that's worked so well for me, because it's not enough, H, to survive. You've got to thrive. So, Mickey, go get that pig. Let's stuff it down our mouths to start with. And then when we're through with that, maybe we can do the guinea fowl. And then when we're through with that, well, we'll do the money. Let's just do the money. That will make it much better. Just the money. Oh, and the fame and the glory. You need to write to everybody you can. You're Americans. You need to know that you have the power to complain very vociferously to your congressmen, your congresswomen, your senators, your president, your governors. Doesn't matter whether they are Democrats or Republicans. They are your representatives, and this is a very serious issue. The woman needs to be stopped. If she is allowed to trademark Archtype, it is going to be not only a national disgrace, but an international disgrace, and it's going to show the world to what extent the United States of America is in deep trouble. Because in a democracy, everybody has rights, not just frowsy, rich witches, and we'll spell it with a W instead of a B, although it really should start much higher up the alphabet than W. Susan, the person I feel most sorry for, is the Queen, having been so betrayed by a grandson she thought loved her, a grandson she probably thought had her best interests at heart. What a sad realization for her at this stage of life. Can say that again. Any grandmother put in that situation would feel betrayed. Any. And really wonder what on earth is going on, because she knows she did nothing wrong. But she also knows that if the tree isn't properly trained from it is young, it can grow up to be twisted. What a sad realization for her at this stage of life. Also, Meghan, where does she think she gets the right to have a comment about everything in society in a public forum, as though she is an elected politician in the US? It's like she just elected herself into a role that she created. Well, that's exactly what she's done, my dear. And if you had any access to the TIG, you would see, and before that, the other one, which I've forgotten its name, the working actress or some such thing like that. You'll see that Meghan is a great believer in, if the reality doesn't suit you, invent a new reality. If you don't like the truth, create a new truth. It's one thing to develop your potential and self-actualize. It is another to treat the world to the most disgusting display of narcissistic megalomania that I have to say it has ever been my displeasure to witness. Yes, she has created the role and she's gorging herself upon it. You can figuratively just see her stuffing attention and everything in her mouth. I mean, she is, in my opinion, truly, and it's not only my opinion, incidentally, it's the opinion of medical professionals to whom I've spoken. And if she wishes to dispute it, I'm happy to meet her in a court of law and argue my case. Because her conduct is indicative of a truly sick individual. Sick. Disturbingly sick. Disturbed. And you know what makes it truly beyond the ability to sympathize is the flagrant disregard for everybody else's rights. Nobody in her scheme of things, if her conduct is anything to go by, has a look in. Nobody has a right. She's the only person on earth who has rights. And that, I tell you, to me, is very resonant, because one of my mother's favourite sayings when we were growing up is, no one has any rights in this house but me. True narcissists who are manipulative, devious, with antisocial tendencies, regard everybody, every other human being, as a lower form of life than they regard themselves. Nobody has any rights but them. And I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. And I think most people would agree with me that anybody who has a brass neck to try to trademark the word archetype shows that she has nothing but contempt for every single other human being who has any interest whatsoever in using the word archetype. That is abuse on such a grand scale that it actually takes the breath away. Pat Greenwood says, love you and your videos, Lady C. Thanks so, several O's, much for your thoughts. Thank you. I was looking up the net worth of the top US movie stars that Misery M wants to be a part of. She would have been as rich or richer, much better thought of than most, if not all, movie stars, and had plenty of fame and publicity, plus dining and living in castles. What she gave up is hard to believe. Now she is infamous, has negative publicity, and doesn't live in castles, and no famous or rich people want to be near her. Do you agree? Much love to you and Mickey. Well, Patty Greenwood, yes and no. This comes down to two things, in my opinion: money and control. There was no way Meghan could stay in the royal family and have a nest egg that any day she wants to depart, that she could call upon. Also, she had to conduct herself with the decorum, the decorousness, and the decency that the royals are required to conduct themselves with. She chafed at the control. She said she felt she'd lost her voice. So what does she do? Cross the Atlantic, since when she's been treating us to the screeching of her voice, like scratching glass. The sound is so odious, figuratively as opposed to literally, although once you realize what is behind the words, the sound becomes literally odious as well. She now has the freedom to indulge herself, and she's doing it. And she's showing us why she couldn't fit into the royal family. Because she is uncontrollable, uncontained, rapacious, greedy, and quite frankly, beyond belief. I mean, to try to trademark the word archetype, whatever next? God? And then if anybody swears or prays, they either get fined or have to put the money in not the collection box, but her bank account. I mean, it's beyond belief. I think it's so outrageous that I really think somebody should take steps to make sure that there is never a repetition of such an abuse of the rights of hundreds of millions of people, because that's the reality of what we're talking about. Joe Vickers says, what can the Harkles have on the royal family for them not to remove their titles and take them off the list of line of succession? Surely they can see the plan is to destroy the British monarchy. I'm not sure that they 100% would agree with your sentiments. I think one or two members of the family have come to the conclusion that they're really dangerous and that they are determined to do as much damage as they can. But I don't think that there's yet a general acceptance that they are so malicious and so destructive that they actually are planning deliberately to destroy the British monarchy. Also, it's not that easy to strip Harry of his dukedom. Hence why I was approached and asked to start the appeal, which I did. And it's the public that haven't stepped up to the plate. If it had more than the however many tens of thousands it has, if it had hundreds of thousands or millions, then people would be in a far stronger position to do something. But, you know, the public complains and then the public doesn't do anything. I think the public needs to do its bit as well, because then pressure is put on Harry. And that is the neatest and cleanest way of doing it. They cannot be stripped of their titles because they are nasty pieces of work or treacherous in a familial sense. They need to have done something seriously criminal. That is what is required. I hope I've made the position clear. The public outrage, which I share, is not the same thing as legal outrage. The fact of the matter is, Meghan and Harry sail very close to the wind, but she especially is a really slick operator who understands not to cross a certain line. Yet, in other ways, she's busy crossing it left, right, and centre. For instance, trying to trademark Archtype. That is a truly outrageous violation of the rights of hundreds of millions of people. But within the law, she's functioning within the law. She's taking full advantage of being an exploitative hustler of the law. And the law allows you to take full advantage of it. Only when you cross over the line into illegality do you become liable for the consequences of breaching the law. Until then, the law can't be used. Moral outrage and the law are two entirely different things. I hope you see that. But the longer this goes on, and the more flagrant the abuses are, is the more sympathy they lose from the public. The more admiration they lose, the more unpopular they become. But until such time as they do something truly dreadful, flagrantly and publicly against the royal family, they're going to keep those titles, and they're going to remain he is going to remain in the line of succession, and therefore she as well, because that's his birthright. He can only be stripped of his birthright if he does something truly awful, like if the country is at war and he fights with the enemy, as happened during the First World War, when several of the royal dukes were attainted. Sarah W. says, the palace were ruthless with Margaret, Diana, Sarah, and even Sophie when she made her first blunder. Now they're allowing these two to build a following and gain ground. I think they will regret it, and it can only mean they fear these two. The time for hoping they'll go away is over. And do I agree? Yes and no. The longer this goes on, is the more unpopular Harry and Meghan make themselves. These solecisms, to be polite, that they indulge in, these violations of the rights of others, they're showing themselves in colours that people do not like, and they have lost respect. They have gone from being one of the most popular couples on earth to one of the most unpopular couples on earth, except possibly in certain segments of the United States. That is an accomplishment that has been achieved because they have been given free rein to show us what jerks they are. I think Napoleon is the one who said it. Don't interfere with your enemy when he's destroying himself. That's the technique. It takes longer, but it's more effective. And it means the royal family can't be accused of depriving them of their rights. Wanda James says, use me as you will. That choice of words is more telling about the speaker than the recipient, spoken by a true user who thinks in those terms just as a matter of course. You couldn't be more right. That is the sentiment that was picked up by me and by those who received the offer. I mean, it was the end in vulgarity, aside from anything else. Who speaks in terms like those? Oh, I mean, the vulgarity, it's just beyond belief. Transplanted One says, it amazes me that people who demand reparations from Britain totally ignore the fact that slavery had been practiced the world over since antiquity and likely before that. It was Britain who put a stop to it, and for the first time in the history of humanity, it became against the law. The Western world followed suit, and as a consequence, slavery, though undoubtedly still among us, has fallen completely out of favour, and rightly so. I've read that out because by and large it's a very valid point, and it reflects the views of many people who have written in. And I'll tell you, on Monday, we are going to be posting a video that was done with Mark Sykes in tribute to him, my friend who died recently. He used to own a slave. He bought one and got mother and daughter and freed them. So if you're interested in slavery, somebody as recently as in the late 50s, early 60s, was buying slaves. Slaves were being sold in Africa. Africa. Rowan says, there was a rumour here in Canada amongst the professionals in Ottawa that Michael Manley and Pierre Trudeau were lovers. Well, Rowan, I don't believe it. I knew Michael Manley. My mother's first boyfriend was Michael Manley. My brother Mickey's first girlfriend was his daughter Rachel Manley. My mother used to say that Michael's kisses were sweeter than wine. And they really must have been, because at the very moment that he was nationalising my father's assets and depriving Mummy of the main reason why she had married Daddy and stayed with him, she was still remembering those sweet kisses. And also Mummy was friendly with his widow, and she was friendly with several of his wives and girlfriends, some of whom I know. And I have to tell you, if Michael Manley was gay, I'm a bar of soap. I can't speak for Pierre Trudeau. He was supposed to be a bit of a swordsman as well. But I don't for a second believe that whatever his failings, Michael Manley was gay. Having said that, I know that he was a very impatient lover, extremely enthusiastic, and the train often arrived at the platform. Well, actually, the train, let me rephrase that. By the time the train arrived at the platform, the luggage had been unloaded further down the track. If you get my drift, which I think could well account for the fact that although he was quite the swordsman, his relationships by and large didn't last. If I make myself clear, and if I don't, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to say anything more on the subject, because decorum alone prevents further description. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and keep the questions coming in. Remember, this cannot be done without you. God bless and goodbye.